September 19, 1944, Hürtgen Forest, German border. The Hürtgen Forest was a nightmare of pine and mud, a dark tangle of trees that swallowed light and sound. I'm Sergeant Thomas Callahan, Platoon Sergeant for 2nd Platoon, Company B, 112th Infantry Regiment, 28th Division. At 29, I'd seen enough of war, Sicily, Normandy, but nothing like this. Our orders were to punch through the forest to the Roer River, cracking the Siegfried Line. The brass said it'd be quick. They hadn't seen the terrain. The forest floor was a churned mess, ankle-deep mud from weeks of rain, roots tripping us at every step. Visibility was maybe 20 yards, the canopy so thick it felt like dusk at noon. My M1 Garand, slung across my chest, was caked in grime despite constant cleaning. The rifle's wooden stock was slick with moisture, and the bolt needed oiling twice daily to keep it from seizing. We carried 80 pounds of gear, ammo, entrenching tool, K rations, grenades, all soaked and heavy. My boots, standard GI issue, were no match for the mud. Water seeped through, and my socks hadn't been dry in days. Yesterday, Private Malone's bar jammed in a firefight because mud got in the receiver. I showed him how to wrap a rag around the action, but it's a losing battle out here. The Germans had the advantage. Their bunkers, part of the Siegfried Line, were concrete slabs hidden in the undergrowth, with MG-42s that chewed through trees. Their artillery, 8.8s mostly, screamed through the canopy, bursting in the treetops and raining shrapnel. We'd already lost 3 men to tree bursts on the first day. Shrapnel tore through helmets like paper. The forest made every move a gamble. You couldn't see the enemy until their muzzle flashes lit up. Today, we dug in along a ridge near Wassenach, a village we'd been told to secure. The ground was hard clay under the mud, and my entrenching tool dulled fast. We worked in pairs, one man digging, the other watching for snipers. The air smelled of pine, wet earth, and cordite. Rain drizzled, turning foxholes into puddles. I checked the platoon, 36 men, down from 42 a week ago. Replacements were green, barely trained. Private Harris, 19, kept dropping his clips in the mud. I showed him how to tuck them under his jacket, but his hands shook too much. At dusk, Lieutenant Parker called me over. He was young, West Point, but sharp. "Callahan, we're holding here tonight. Expect counterattacks. Keep the men alert." I nodded, knowing alert was a tall order. We were exhausted, rations low. 2 K rations a day, mostly crackers and cheese. The forest was silent except for the drip of rain and the distant thump of artillery. I wondered how the Germans were faring. Probably better, dug into their bunkers. Back home, my brother Danny wrote about his farm in Ohio, the harvest coming in. I tried to picture it, but the forest crowded out everything else. September 25th, 1944. Hürtgen Forest, near Wassenach. The forest was a meat grinder, 5 days in, and we'd gained maybe a mile. The terrain was the real enemy, hills, ravines, and mud that sucked boots off. Today, we were tasked with a patrol to scout German positions near a firebreak 800 yards east. Lieutenant Parker picked my squad, me, Corporal Eddie Russo, and Privates Malone, Harris, and Kowalski. Russo was the heart of the platoon, a wiry Italian from Brooklyn who'd been with me since Sicily. His quick grin and endless stories about his ma's lasagna kept the men steady. He'd lost his brother at Anzio, but never let it show. We moved at dawn, single file, keeping low. The forest was dense, firs so close their branches tangled. I led, M1 ready, scanning for tripwires or glints of steel. The mud made every step a slog. We avoided trails, knowing the Germans booby-trapped them. My eyes ached from straining through the gloom. Russo whispered, "Like walking through a haunted wood, Sarge." I shushed him, but he wasn't wrong. At 300 yards, I heard a branch snap. I signaled halt, dropping to one knee behind a tree. Through the underbrush, I spotted movement. A German patrol, maybe 6 men, Car 98 slung, moving parallel. They hadn't seen us. Their helmets were dull gray, uniforms muddy like ours. I counted 2 with MP-40s. My heart pounded, but I kept still, signaling the squad to stay low. Harris's breathing was loud. I glared at him, and he clamped his mouth shut. The Germans passed 30 yards away, oblivious. I noted their direction, toward a rise where we'd seen bunker slits yesterday. Useful intel if we made it back. The firebreak was a muddy scar, 50 yards wide, with a dragon's teeth barrier, concrete pyramids to stop tanks. Beyond it, I spotted a bunker, its MG-42 barrel barely visible. I sketched the position in my notebook, marking the firebreak's edges. We heard a low hum, German voices inside. Russo crept closer, peering through binoculars, then slid back. 2 guns, Sarge, maybe 10 men. We retreated, moving slow to avoid noise. Back at the line, I reported to Parker. He nodded, scribbling notes for the captain. The patrol cost us nothing but nerves, but I knew the forest wouldn't stay quiet. October 3rd, 1944, Hürtgen Forest, Schmidt Outskirts. Combat here was chaos. The Germans held every ridge, their machine guns sweeping the slopes. Today, we attacked a bunker complex near Schmidt, a town we needed to control the Roer dams. My platoon was to flank left, supporting Company A's frontal assault. The forest was sodden, rain turning paths to rivers. My M1's barrel was clean, but the trigger guard was caked with mud. I tied a rag over it, but it still felt gritty. Ammo was tight, 6 clips per man, no spares. Russo's bar was our heavy hitter, but his ammo belts were half empty. At 0700, artillery opened up, 105s pounding the ridge. The ground shook, trees splintering. We moved out, 30 men crawling through mud and ferns. I kept low, using roots for cover, my knees soaked. The air reeked of smoke and wet pine. German MG-42s answered, their buzzsaw rattle cutting through the barrage. Bullets snapped overhead, shredding leaves. I yelled, "Spread out! Use the trees!" The men fanned out, but Harris froze, clutching his rifle. I grabbed his arm, dragging him behind a stump. "Move, damn it!" He nodded, eyes wide. We reached a gully, 200 yards from the bunkers. Russo spotted a German outpost, 2 men with an MG-34. I signaled Malone to lob a grenade. His throw was short, exploding harmlessly. The Germans opened fire, pinning us. My pulse raced, but I stayed calm, sighting my M1. I fired twice, dropping 1 German. Russo's bar took the other, its deep thud echoing. We advanced, sprinting across open ground to the bunker's flank. The concrete was slick. It slit dark. I tossed a grenade through, hearing screams after the blast. We cleared it. 3 dead Germans, their Mausers scattered. The main bunker held. Company A was stalled, taking heavy fire. Parker radioed, "Callahan, suppress that MG." I positioned Russo's bar and 2 riflemen, firing bursts to keep the Germans down. Mud splashed my face as bullets hit nearby. We held for 20 minutes until A Company breached with satchel charges. The bunker fell, but we lost 5 men, including Kowalski, hit by shrapnel. His scream lingered in my head, a kid from Chicago, always humming jazz. The forest swallowed our gains. We dug in, expecting counterattacks. October 12th, 1944, Hürtgen Forest, near Call Trail. The platoon was bleeding out. We were down to 28 men, replacements barely keeping up. Private Sullivan, a new kid from Texas, joined us yesterday. He was 18, all bravado, but his hands shook, cleaning his M1. I showed him how to oil the bolt, but he dropped the can in the mud. "Sorry, Sarge," he mumbled. I clapped his shoulder. "You'll learn." Russo took him under his wing, teaching him to spot tripwires. Sullivan followed him like a puppy, but I worried he'd crack under fire. The forest was worse now. Fog so thick you couldn't see 10 yards, rain turning foxholes into swamps. My boots were rotting, toes numb. The M1's sling was frayed, and I'd patched it with parachute cord. Rations were down to 1 K ration a day. Canned ham and crackers, no coffee. We boiled rainwater in helmets, using Esbit tablets that smelled like burning rubber. Russo found a German canteen in a wrecked bunker, filled with schnapps. He shared it, grinning. Better than K-Rats, eh, Sarge? It burned going down, a brief warmth. Captain Reynolds, our CO, was a hard-ass but competent. Today, he ordered a night patrol to probe German lines along the call trail, a muddy track the enemy used for supply. I led, taking Russo, Sullivan, and 2 others. We moved at 2200, blacked out, using the trail's ruts for cover. The forest was pitch dark, the air heavy with damp. Every snap of a twig set my nerves on edge. I gripped my M1, finger off the trigger, scanning for movement. Sullivan tripped, cursing softly. I hissed, "Quiet!" He froze, breathing hard. At a bend, I spotted a German sentry, his cigarette glowing. I signaled halt, crouching behind a log. He was 20 yards away, car 98K slung. I could have shot him, but noise would bring trouble. We watched, noting his routine, pacing a 50-yard stretch, likely guarding a supply cache. Russo whispered, "Want to take him?" I shook my head. Intel was the goal. We marked the position and slipped back. Sullivan was pale, but kept up. Back at base, I reported to Reynolds. He grunted. Good work. The trail would be shelled tomorrow. I hoped Sullivan would last that long. October 20th, 1944. Hürtgen Forest, Rafflesbrand Ridge. The forest was a graveyard. We'd been fighting for weeks, gaining yards, losing men. The platoon was at 24, half its strength. Sullivan was still here, tougher now, but his eyes were hollow. Russo kept him going, joking about Brooklyn diners. Today, we held Rafflesbrand Ridge, a muddy slope littered with shattered trees. The Germans shelled us daily, 8/8s bursting in the canopy. The sound was a banshee wail, followed by shrapnel hissing through the air. My helmet had a new dent from a splinter yesterday. Our foxholes were knee-deep in water, the mud like glue. My M1 was a mess. I cleaned it with a toothbrush, but the barrel was pitted from moisture. Ammo was rationed, 4 clips per man. We'd scavenged German grenades, potato mashers, from a knocked-out bunker. They were heavier than our Mark IIs, but worked fine. Russo rigged a tripwire with 1, using fishing line from a K ration kit. Kraut comes snooping, he's done, he said. I nodded, impressed. Improvisation was survival here. At 0900, the Germans hit us. It started with mortars, 81mm rounds cratering the ridge. I yelled, "Down!" as men dove into foxholes. The ground shook, dirt raining on my helmet. Then came infantry, gray shapes moving through the fog, bayonets fixed. I sighted my M1, firing controlled shots. The Garand's ping echoed as the clip ejected. Russo's bar roared, cutting down a German squad. Sullivan, to his credit, held his ground, firing until his rifle jammed. I tossed him my spare clip, shouting, "Keep shooting!" The attack lasted 30 minutes. We repelled them, but lost 2 men, Private Daniels, shot through the neck, and Corporal Hayes, hit by a mortar. Daniels was Russo's bunkmate, a quiet guy who sketched birds in his notebook. Russo stared at his body, silent. I pulled him away. "Focus, Eddie." He nodded, but the light in his eyes dimmed. We buried them in shallow graves, marking the spot with dog tags. The forest felt heavier, the mud thicker. I thought of Danny's farm, the open fields. It felt a world away. October 28th, 1944. Hürtgen Forest, near Schmidt. The war's progress was a rumor, filtered through radio static and scuttlebutt. We heard the Russians were pushing west, and Patton was somewhere in France. Here, we were stuck, bleeding for every yard. The Hürtgen was a black hole, sucking in divisions. Our battalion was at 60% strength, the regiment worse. Replacements arrived, but half didn't last a week. Sullivan was an exception, learning fast, but even he was fraying. Today, we got a rare break. A supply drop brought K rations and ammo. My M1 got a new sling, though the mud would ruin it soon. Russo found a German propaganda leaflet in the crates, showing happy GIs surrendering. "Join us, you'll eat steak," it read. He laughed, tearing it up. Steaks in Brooklyn, not Berlin. The men chuckled, a rare sound. We boiled coffee, the smell cutting through the damp. Russo told stories of his ma's Sunday dinners, meatballs piled high. Sullivan listened, rapt, forgetting the war for a moment. Captain Reynolds called a briefing. Division's planning a push on Schmidt. We're the spearhead. The men groaned. Schmidt was a fortress, bunkers everywhere. Reynolds ignored the complaints, detailing routes and artillery support. I studied the map, narrow trails, steep ridges, perfect for ambushes. My platoon would scout ahead, probing for weak points. I felt the weight of 24 lives, each man's face burned in my mind. Russo clapped my shoulder. We'll make it, Sarge. I wanted to believe him. At night, I cleaned my M1 by candlelight, the forest silent except for distant shelling. The rifle's metal was cold, the stock worn smooth. I thought of my father, a doughboy in 18. Keep your head down, Tommy, he'd said before I shipped out, and your rifle clean. I'd followed half his advice. The forest pressed in, its shadows alive. I wondered if we'd ever see the rower. November 4, 1944. Hürtgen Forest. Schmidt approach. The push on Schmidt was hell. We attacked at dawn, my platoon leading through a ravine. The forest was a frozen swamp, mud caking our legs. My M1 was slung tight, bayonet fixed. Russo's bar was our anchor, Sullivan on his flank with extra magazines. The air was sharp, breath fogging. German artillery opened up, 88s screaming. Tree bursts showered shrapnel. I dove behind a rock, my helmet ringing from a near miss. Move, move, I shouted, waving the men forward. We crawled, using fallen logs for cover. The ravine narrowed, forcing us single file. I spotted a German MG-42 nest, its barrel flashing 100 yards ahead. My stomach knotted, but I signaled Russo. He fired a burst, drawing their attention. I flanked right, crawling through ferns, mud in my mouth. The smell of gunpowder burned my nose. I got within 20 yards, tossing a grenade. The blast silenced the gun. 2 Germans lay dead, their helmets cracked. We advanced, but the cost was high. 3 men down, including Private Carter, shot through the chest. Sullivan froze during the fight, staring at Carter's body. I grabbed his collar. Keep moving, kid. He nodded, tears mixing with mud. Russo covered us, his bar spitting fire. We reached a clearing, bunkers looming. Company C joined, but German panzers, Mark IVs, rolled in. Their cannons boomed, tearing up the ground. We had no bazookas. Our 60mm mortars were back at the line. I radioed Parker. Tanks! Pull back! We retreated, dragging wounded. Russo carried Sullivan, who'd twisted his ankle. The forest saved us, its density hiding our retreat. We lost 8 men. Schmidt remained German. November 10th, 1944. Hürtgen Forest, Wassenack Ridge. The platoon was a ghost. 19 men left. Russo was still here, but quieter, his jokes rare. Sullivan was a shadow, hardened but brittle. The forest was unrelenting, snow mixing with mud, temperatures dropping to 20 degrees Fahrenheit. My M1's bolt froze once. I warmed it with my hands, cursing. We'd scavenged German blankets, wrapping them over our field jackets. Rations were gone. We ate captured German bread, hard as stone. Today, I sat in a foxhole, staring at the trees. The war felt endless, the rower a myth. Russo joined me, offering a cigarette, German, from a dead officer. Sarge, you think we'll make it? I exhaled smoke, the forest blurring. We've made it this far, Eddie. He nodded, but his eyes were distant. I thought of Danny, his letters about Ohio's fields. I carried one in my pocket, the paper worn thin. It was my tether to home, a reminder of why I fought. At dusk, I walked the line, checking foxholes. The men were gaunt, eyes sunken. Sullivan was cleaning his M1, slow but steady. I remembered my father's words. Keep your men alive, Tommy. I'd failed too many. The forest was a thief, stealing lives and hope. But Rousseau's grin, Sullivan's grit, they kept me going. I returned to my foxhole, the snow falling. The war would go on, but so would we, for now.